Welcome back. We're at a critical point in the course now because we have two paths that are going to diverge. Now, don't worry. These two paths just depend on your past experience. At the end of the course, you're still going to end up in the same location with the same knowledge, but we want to make sure that this course is inclusive for everybody. And that is, in order for us to continue, we need to know a programming language, and specifically Python, because Python is used all over data science. It's a mandatory requirement. So we need to learn it. Now, for some of you, you already know Python, right? For those that know Python, you can just keep continuing with the next lecture. Because starting from the next lecture, we're going to assume that you know how to program in Python. The other path is for people that don't know Python. Whether you're new to programming or maybe know another language but aren't so familiar with Python, well, we have a second path where we teach you Python from scratch. For those people, you'll have to go to the bottom of the course in the course outline and start the Python section. And once you're done that Python section, come back to this lecture and then continue on with the course. I promise you it's not as intimidating as you think, and you're going to learn Python enough to get hired. Now, you might be asking yourself, Andre, why do we even need Python? All this stuff you've been talking about sounds a lot like just data that, well, we can just use Excel and Excel sheets to create graphs. And don't we have Excel for this? And haven't businesses been using Excel successfully for the past decades? Now, even though Excel is great, there are some areas that make a programming language like Python a lot better for certain types of data science and data analysis. So trust me on this one. You need to know Python because unlike Excel, where you can just have a visual representation and drag and drop cells and play things around, well, with Python, we have certain benefits like the ability to work with almost any kind of data. You can automate repetitive tasks and make things easier. It's a lot faster when you start working with larger and larger amounts of data. It has advanced statistics and machine learning capabilities that we wouldn't get with Excel. And also advanced data visualizations. So we can just make things beyond just general graphs that you might find in Excel. But more importantly, with Python, you can run Python anywhere. You don't need a certain type of operating system or a certain type of computer. You can run your data science projects and machine learning projects with Python. So yes, you have to know Python, and I've said Python a million times in this video. So those are your two choices. Either you know Python and keep going with the course, or you don't know Python, so you're going to jump to the Python section and come back to this video. All right. Two paths. Let's get started. We're all going to end up in the same location. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, it's Bruno here. You're doing a killer job. Pretty impressed with everything you've done so far for us. But you know what? I think it's time for you to start doing some real work. We got lots of clients ready and excited to work with you. But here's your laptop. New company laptop, but it's pretty empty right now. I don't think it has any of the tools that you need for your projects. So hopefully set it up today, and then tomorrow we're going to get you started on some projects. Good luck. I'll see you out there. All right, day 3, and you finally have your new laptop, your new computer, but you have none of the tools necessary to do a job of a data scientist. So in this section, we're going to learn how to set up our computers so that we can do all the tasks we need for the rest of the course. All the tasks that a data science needs to do. Plus, it looks like Bruno's really getting excited to give you some client projects, so you better have everything set up for him. How does he do that with his hair? It's always so perfect. All right, I'm getting distracted with Bruno's perfect hair. Let's get back to it. Let's set up our work environments to have a professional setup.
Now we've got a framework we can use for machine learning problems. It's time to start matching the framework to existing data science and machine learning tools. We're going to start right at the foundation. Since machine learning is quite broad, there are many different tools that we could use. So we need something to help manage our tools for us. To do so, you can use Anaconda, Miniconda, and Conda. And now I know, you might be thinking, snakes? What the hell is Daniel talking about? But trust me, once you understand these, setting up future machine learning projects, such as ones which use tools like you see here, are going to be a breeze. You can think of Anaconda and Miniconda as the hardware store and workbench of data scientists, and Conda as your personal assistant. Anaconda and Miniconda are software distributions. So much like when you download an app from the App Store, it comes with code other people have written which you can use on your computer or smartphone. The same goes for these two. They come with code other people have written which we can take advantage of on our computers for our own machine learning projects. Collections of code written by other people are often referred to as packages or tools. For example, for our heart disease classification problem we've talked about, we might want to use several Python packages, each of which could be considered a different tool for different stages of the project. In the beginning, we might use Pandas and Matplotlib packages for data analysis and data exploration. Then, to build a machine learning model, we might use the Scikit-learn package. We might use all of these packages within a Jupyter notebook, which comes from the Jupyter package. Now, downloading Anaconda to your computer requires around 3 GB or so of space, and it installs all of the major data science and machine learning packages. However, remember how we said Anaconda is like the hardware store of data science tools? This means it's got almost every data science tool you can imagine. And from my experience, many of them don't get used. And since we're focused on being practitioners, we're going to be using the most useful ones. This is where Miniconda comes in. Miniconda, remember, is like the data scientist's workbench. It starts with the minimum requirements to get started, such as Python and a few others. And now because of this, it takes up to about 10 times less space on your computer, coming in at around 200 megabytes. So to save space and to get started, we're going to use Miniconda. But I mentioned Anaconda because I want you to be aware of it if someone mentions it or you see it somewhere online. Up next, we're going to look at Conda, which is like your assistant that comes with Miniconda. So once you download Miniconda, it'll have a few tools, but then you use Conda to help manage those tools for you. We'll look into this more in a second. Okay. So now you've got a little idea between the difference of Anaconda and Miniconda. Hopefully you're not sick of snakes yet because we've got one more Conda to cover, and that's Conda itself. If Anaconda and Miniconda are like the hardware store and workbench of data scientists, Conda is like a data scientist's personal assistant. It can help you set up your workbench, order new tools when you need, make a copy of what tools you're using to share with someone else, and more. Formally, Anaconda and Miniconda are known as software distributions, and Conda is known as a package manager. Remember how a package is a collection of code someone else has written which you can use? Well, Conda helps you download, install, and manage these packages. When you download Anaconda or Miniconda and install it to your computer, Conda comes with them. But because we're using Miniconda comes with the essentials to get started, like Python, not the entire hardware store of data science tools like Anaconda. But Miniconda also comes with Conda. So I know this can seem confusing to begin with, and trust me, it took me a while to understand this. But what Conda allows us to do is install other tools. So we've got Miniconda, which is like the base. We've got Python to get started. That's on our computer. And then we use Conda, the package manager, to install these other packages. Now you might be thinking, Daniel, why do we do it this way? This seems so confusing. There's so many steps. I already have my computer. You're telling me I have to download Miniconda. Miniconda comes with Conda. Conda's like some personal assistant that helps me install packages. packages of code other people have written, and I totally get you. I was the same when I first started. But after working in different teams, I started to see how important it was to get this type of setup for each kind of project you're working on. Up next, we're going to see how Conda, our personal assistant for our data science tools, can help us to create an environment which contains different packages that we can use to work on different projects. Now again, I can understand you if you're a bit confused at the moment. This concept took me a little while to understand too. But we're going to see it in practice throughout a bunch of different examples throughout the course. You might be thinking, why are we going through all these steps? I've got my computer, why do I have to download Anaconda with Python and then Conda and then install all these packages? I just want to get started coding. And so you should be. It's good to hear you want to code. We'll be doing lots of that soon. But getting your computer, and getting our computer set up with Anaconda and Conda are important steps which will save a lot of time in the future. When you download Anaconda and subsequently Conda, Conda gives you the ability to create environments. You'll hear a lot of these in different projects that you're working on. Let me give you an example. A workflow for our classifying heart disease project might involve starting with our computer and then creating a project folder which contains the data we're using, patient records, and the tools we're using for our machine learning project. After a little bit of experience, we know there's a collection of tools we might want to use, such as Pandas and Matplotlib for data analysis. A collection of tools or packages is called an environment. We use Conda to create the environment and then use it again to install different packages, data science and machine learning tools to it. Then, every time we work on our project, say classifying heart disease, we use the tools within our environment. So let's walk through this. You've got your computer, you want to start a new project, such as working on heart disease. You might create just a separate folder, maybe on the desktop or something like that. And then within that one single folder, you keep everything that you're going to use with that project in that folder, such as the data. Remember, the patient records could be the data, and the Conda environment, these are all the tools you're going to be working on to find insights on that data to try and predict heart disease. Conda is what you use to create this environment, install and update the tools that you need. Now, why is this helpful? Why would we do it in this kind of way? Well, here's where it comes in handy. Say, for example, you're working on your heart disease project. Since much of machine learning is experimental, you might be using a number of different tools for a single project. Now, what if someone else wanted to start working on what you're working on with you? Instead of setting up their own workbench from scratch, Conda allows you to share with them the exact same set of tools and packages you've been using so they can get started straight away. This may not seem helpful if you're working largely by yourself at the moment, but I can assure you it is one of the biggest problems when you start working on a team. There would be days where me and my teammates, we would literally spend all day working on the same project, or trying to set up or trying to work on the same project, but we couldn't because we ran into dependency issues. A dependency issue is a term that's used when you don't have the right package for the problem that you're working on, because this problem, this project, this classifying heart disease will be dependent on these tools here. And when we ran into dependency issues, it meant that we couldn't install some of these tools. Conda helps to fix that dependency issue. It ensures that you can create this environment that's easily shareable and updatable that you can share with someone else. So, if you had multiple people on your team and you're all working on a similar project with similar data and similar data science and machine learning tools, the reason being we do this workflow is so that you can create a project folder, and then if you had to share it with someone else's computer or someone else on your team, you could just send them the project folder that contains the data and your Conda environment, and they would be able to get started straight away. Now again, if this seems like a lot, and it is a lot to take in, we're going to have hands-on practice setting up a project folder as well as an environment for each of the hands-on projects we're going to cover throughout this course. Okay, now I know you've been through a lot, and this kind of diagram here can seem very confusing to begin with, and don't you worry, it took me a few times to really understand what was going on here. And as well as this setup here, right? So you've got your computer, you probably understand that, but this, if you've never worked on a machine learning project before, this might seem a little out of whack. You got a project folder, you got data, you got an environment. Conda helps you create this environment, and within that environment, you have different data science and machine learning tools. Well, what we're going to do in this lecture, and this is for macOS, by the way, so if you're using a Windows computer, you might want to look at the other version of this lecture, which goes through the same steps. But what we're going to do in this section, or this lecture, and bear with me because this is a little bit of an involved process, but we're going to work through it together. There's documentation in the resources section that will help you along if you get stuck, but don't worry, this kind of concept takes a while to get it first, but once you get it, you'll start to realize, okay, I see where it's valuable, and you'll be able to use it throughout your data science and machine learning career. Now, first of all, we have your computer. What we're going to do is download Conda along with Conda, and then use Conda to create an environment which contains some of these tools. So this is what we'll do. We'll download Conda, which Conda will come with. We'll create a project folder, and then we'll create an example environment like this. And what we can use this environment for is, because there's tools in here for data science and machine learning, we can use it for our future projects. This lecture kind of sets up the whole entire rest of the course. So once we have these environments set up, we can start to work on projects, get hands-on, start working with data, start building machine learning models. But setting up the right foundation is very important. So in saying that, I've developed a little flowchart here that, again, this link will be in the resources section, of just some steps of what we're going to do with Anaconda, Conda, and Conda. And don't worry, we're not going to go through this, well, we actually will go through this step by step, but for now, I'll let you have a look at this on your own. But these are the steps we're going to take. Download Conda. Let me zoom in. Download Conda, install it to your computer, test the installation via terminal, create a project folder and change into it. So this project folder is kind of like the workflow that we're going to be setting up for each of the projects. They'll each have their own project. Create a custom environment within the project folder. Now, an environment, remember, is a collection of packages or tools that we use for data science projects. We're going to activate our new environment, and then we're going to load up a Jupyter notebook, which is one of the tools. Don't worry if you're not sure what a Jupyter notebook is. We'll look into that in a second. But Jupyter notebook is one of the tools we use most often for data science and machine learning. All right. So the first step is to download Conda. And what we're going to do, there's a link here in this flowchart, but I'll just show you how you'd find it. So Conda download. We open up a browser. So we go to Conda. Now remember, we're using Conda because it's about 10 times less space than Anaconda. Now, because I'm using macOS, I'm going to download the Mac version. We want to download the latest version because Python 2.7 or Python 2. Anything is getting phased out as of 2020. So remember, if you're on Windows, you might want to look at the Windows version of this lecture, but if you're on Mac OS, these are the steps for you. So we download this, the PKG version. Just trust me when I say the PKG version. Download that. What that's going to do, this is going to download to our download section of the computer. It doesn't take too long, so we'll just wait for that to happen. Beautiful. Once that's finished, we can open it up. This is going to open up the Conda 3 installer. So you'll be guided through the necessary steps to install this software. Beautiful. We're going to walk through these. Click agree. Choose installation. Now this is the default here. right? Install for me only, you want to click on this one as well. Installing this software requires 195 megabytes of space. So remember, Anaconda, even though it's got the Anaconda logo here, you want to pay attention to up here, Miniconda 3. So this is taking up, Anaconda is going to take up about 3 gigabytes. This takes up about 200 megabytes, which is fine. And now installing Miniconda is going to come with it some of the foundational tools that we need to get started with data science and machine learning. Remember, Miniconda is like a data scientist's workbench. So we'll click continue, install. Excellent. So after a few seconds, didn't actually take too long, it'll automatically change to this little window here where it says the installation was completed successfully. Beautiful. We can close that now, move to bin. So what have we actually done? What we've done is we've got our computer and we've just done this step. We've installed Miniconda plus Conda. And remember, Miniconda is going to come along with something like Python, which is what we need to use these packages. All of these packages are written in Python code. Now, what we can do is we're going to set up this little workflow. We've got our computer. We're going to set up a project folder. And then we're going to use Conda, which came with Miniconda, to create an environment. So let's do that. Now, if you're on a Mac, you can do this through Terminal. So I'm going to open up Terminal. And I'll make this a bit bigger so we can zoom in. Now, if you've never experienced this before, what Terminal does is essentially lets you type in commands that's going to tell your computer to do something. And that's what we want. We want to tell our computer to go, hey, create this project folder, and then we'll use Conda to create this environment. And you can do that with commands in the command line, which is where we are now. As I just said, you may hear this referred to as bash, command line, terminal. If you're on Windows, it might be something else. But if you ever hear those words, terminal, bash, command line, it's probably within the terminal app on Mac. So remember, you can find that by going terminal. Now, before installing Miniconda, this wouldn't have been here. But because we have installed Miniconda, we've now got a little thing here called base. And what these brackets are at the start of your name, you see this is my MacBook Pro, and I'm in my user account, Daniel. What this means is we're currently in the base environment. When we download Miniconda to our computer, it's going to set up a base environment. Now this base environment comes with the default tools, but we want to create our own custom environment within our own custom project folder. So how would we do that? Well, first of all, we're going to change directory to the desktop. And we can do that by pressing CD desktop, where CD means change directory. And if you're wondering what directory is, it's kind of like a folder. So if we look in Finder and I go to Daniel, let me just zoom in on that for you too. So this is where we are now, Daniel. And what I want to do is change to the desktop. So I'll change to here, and we're going to create a folder on the desktop called sample project. And this will be just an example of how we create a project folder and an environment within that project folder so that we can set ourselves up for the future. For each project we go through in this course, we'll create a new project exactly like this. So we're going to change to the desktop. And now to create a folder, we can do make dir called sample project, where mkdir stands for make directory. So if we hit enter, while we do that, we should be able to see if we hit ls, which stands for list, which means list all the files which are on the desktop. It says ML course and sample project. So let's go back to the desktop in Finder. You can see sample project was created today at 1:21 p.m. and there's ML course. So by the end of this course, you'll have maybe a sample project folder to begin with through this lecture, and then probably 3 or 4 others, or depending on how many projects there are, you'll have a folder for each project that we work on. And remember, we've done step 1 here. We've got our project folder. This is what we've just created. Your computer downloaded Miniconda. We haven't used Miniconda yet, but we've created this project folder, sample project. Now we're going to use Conda to create an environment which contains the machine learning and data science tools that we need. So let's go back to terminal. This is where we can use Conda again. So we're going to change directory into our sample project with CD sample project. Now we're inside sample project, and if we hit ls, there's going to be nothing in here. Go back to Finder, nothing in here, which makes sense, right? Because it's a brand new folder. Now, to create a sample or to create an environment, we can use the command conda create. And in our case, we're gonna use specifically the conda create prefix ./env. Don't worry, I'll step through this in a second. Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn. Now you might be looking at this going, holy hell. Daniel, there's a lot of commands there and a lot of these names don't even make sense to me, and what is even going on here? Well, great question, because it took me a while to get around this as well. So, in a nutshell, what is this saying? We got conda create. So, conda create environment. And prefix env. What is this even saying? Conda create is just basically the introduction to any time you want to create one of these environments. You'll type conda create. It's saying, conda, you're querying your personal assistant going, hey, I want to create something. Now that something in our case has a prefix. This .env means that we're going to use the prefix of the current folder to be at the start of this environment folder that we're going to create. And then these pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn are the tools or packages we want to put into our environment. Now, that was a quick overview of this line of code, and we could unpack it more. But most often, it's important to just try run the code and see what happens. So let's do that. Now, what's going to happen is that what we've just done, see a list here. I'll show you what we've just done. So here's our line of code. Conda create prefix ./env pandas numpy matplotlib scikit-learn. Beautiful. Now, environment location. See where I said that it was the prefix? So we've got prefix, then dot. This is what I mean. That means it's going to use the prefix of this sample project folder, or the file path, at the front of this env folder to create another env folder inside the sample project. And you're thinking, oh, Daniel, you've lost me. Don't worry. When I first figured out this or went through this workflow, I was like, what the hell is going on? We got slashes and folders and everything's everywhere. But after doing this a few times, it'll start to make sense and you'll realize the value in having a setup like this. So, this is saying that our environment location, remember, this is what we're creating, environment, is going to be at users/Daniel. It's on the desktop. It's in our folder, sample project. Now this name might change depending on the project we're working on. And it's going to be env. It's called env. Env is short for environment. It's like one of those shorthand ways of typing something, like CD is for change directory. You'll see this very commonly throughout your data science and machine learning career. My environment might be shortened to env. And now Conda is telling us we're going to add/update these packages in there. Why these ones? Well, because we've typed them. Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn. Now you might be thinking, Daniel, why did you choose these? Well, let's go over here. We'll zoom in. Look here, this is the environment we want to create with some of these tools. There's Matplotlib, there's Pandas, there's Scikit-learn, and there's NumPy. So let's go back to the terminal. When we scroll down, Conda's going to tell us a few things. So the following packages will be downloaded. The following new packages will be installed. Yep. And so this is saying NumPy is going to be installed. Pandas is going to be installed. But remember how Conda is our personal assistant? Even though we've only typed in 4 packages, 4 tools, Matplotlib, NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn, Conda is our assistant. And these are standalone packages on themselves, but they also depend on other code. So, because Conda's our personal assistant, it's going to go, hey, ask the internet, what do I need to run these? And then Conda's going to go and grab all of these extra things for us automatically. We're going to say, yes, thank you, Conda. Please proceed. And so now, what's going to happen? It's going to download from the internet and extract different packages. Extract just means similar to how we installed Miniconda. Extract just means it's going to download it and go through the install steps for us. Now this is going to take a few seconds because it's going to go through Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, and Scikit-learn. We'll just wait till that completes. Excellent. So that took a few seconds to download a few things from the internet, but now what have we just done? Well, preparing transaction, done. Verifying transaction, done. Executing transaction, done. Beautiful. Now to activate this environment, this is a message from Conda. Conda activate users /Daniel/desktop/sample project/env. Okay, so if we go back into the sample project folder, we can see here, now we've got an env folder. So what we've done, we go back to our presentation. We look here. We've created a project folder called sample data. Now we've created an environment folder called env, which contains Jupyter. Sorry, we haven't installed Jupyter yet. That's a little spoiler for what's coming up. With Pandas, Matplotlib, and Scikit-learn, thanks to Conda. So we're going to pay attention to what Conda says. Let's run this code, Conda activate. And now I like to type things out, right, instead of copying and pasting, because it gets me used to typing these different commands. And you will get to, you might see these and think, my goodness, this is so much. But don't worry, as I said, we're not in it for the easy thing. We're in it to do things right and make practical machine learning solutions, and this is part of it. So you might want to write this one down. This your special activate might be similar to mine, might have your name here, so you can use it in the future. Now, once we've written it down, we're going to hit enter. And so what you'll see change here is, look, we've gone from base to now users Daniel desktop sample project env. Now this section here is the env prompt. Remember, that's the active environment. So if we go Conda env list, which is going to say, hey Conda, list the environments that we have. We've got base and we've got the env folder in our sample project. Now the star indicates which one is active, which makes sense because this one is the same as this one. Okay, now we've set up an environment with some tools that we need. What we're going to do is start up a Jupyter notebook and try to import the tools that we need. Remember, importing in Python is like saying, hey Python, go and grab these tools, I need to use them. So to start up a Jupyter notebook, we type in Jupyter notebook, and don't worry, if you're not sure what a Jupyter notebook is, we'll have a section on that which goes through how you can use Jupyter notebooks. All you need to know for now is that a Jupyter notebook is somewhere where you can write Python code, especially machine learning and data science code, and write text around it and share your work with others. It's kind of like a big work pad that you can use and just pass it around online. We'll have plenty of experience with that as we go on. We'll hit enter. Now what the Jupyter command not found? Why is that? Well, we go over here. When we ran the command before for Conda create, we had Matplotlib, Pandas, NumPy, Scikit-learn, but we missed out on the Jupyter package. Hold on, let's go up. Did we install the Jupyter package? We didn't. Matplotlib, NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn. No Jupyter. So that's why it's come back, Jupyter command not found. So how do we fix this? Well, again, we can use our personal assistant, Conda. Conda install. Now, install is a command where it's like, okay, I'm missing a package and I want to use it. I'm missing a tool and I need to use it. So I'm going to say, Conda, install this tool for me. In our case, we want the Jupyter tool. So Conda, install Jupyter. Now, of course, we could have typed this up here before, but I've missed out Jupyter on purpose so I could show you this Conda install. We could have put Jupyter here on the end after Scikit-learn, but we're going to run it here. We'll hit enter. Now again, this is going to go, it's going to tell Conda we want Jupyter. It's going to query the internet, and Conda's like, okay, the following new packages to use Jupyter, I'm going to install all of these for you. We're going to hit yes, thank you, Conda. Now this is going to take a few seconds again. Now I know this is getting to be a long process, but Once we've gone through this, we'll be able to automate this to almost just one line of code. So in the future, for future projects, once you understand the concept of creating a project folder, creating an environment, we'll just be able to make it nice and simple and do it in one step. For now, we're just going through it step by step so we can get the concepts as well as get a baseline environment set up for our future projects. And trust me, it took me a long time to get these concepts. So don't go thinking, oh, Daniel's entering these codes and he knows what to do. It's only because I've had a little bit of practice with this, all right? And I know this setting up environments is one of the biggest problems that we ran into working on a team of machine learning engineers. So once you get this down pat, everything else becomes a breeze. Not really, but yeah, you'll see. Okay, so what did we just do then? We ran the command conda install Jupyter. Now we're not going to run that again, but what do you think this has done? If we go back here, we got our project folder, we got our environment folder. Now if we might get rid of this one because that's not what we're going to install. Now we've got this in our environment. That was cat boost, but we'll see that we don't need that for what we're doing now. We can use that in another project. So what have we done? We've got now an environment that we've created with Jupyter, Matplotlib, Pandas, Scikit-learn, and NumPy. Now, what you need to know is that we're going to use Jupyter notebooks and we're going to use these tools for the majority of our data analysis steps. So this is kind of what we've just set up. We've set up an environment with these tools, but there's no use just talking about it. Let's see it. What can we actually do now? Now we've got Jupyter. Can we run the Jupyter notebook command we tried to before? Jupyter notebook. If we've done this right, this should load up the Jupyter interface. Beautiful. And we're going to go through this in a future lecture, but for now, what you need to know is what we can see here is the M folder. Why can we see that? Well, if we go here, the M folder, this is what we're seeing. Let's click on this one. So it's got all these things, bin, conda, meta, doc, etc. Same thing, bin, conda, meta, doc, etc. Beautiful. We don't have to worry about that. Conda's taken care of that. This is our environment with all our tools in it. What we care about for making Jupyter in Jupyter's interface is creating a new Jupyter notebook. You can do that over here for Python 3. Let's try it out. So this is going to create a new Jupyter notebook. And look, this is our workspace. You're going to get very used to using this beautiful interface. I actually really love Jupyter notebooks. So you can write code. It's Python code, right? So you can do 1 + 1. You can do print hello world. So you can do a few things in here. You can even write full functions. We're not going to do that because we're just focusing on seeing if our environment is set up. Now, there's a few more steps that we can do, or one more step really, we can do to check it. Now remember, we've installed Matplotlib, Pandas, Scikit-learn, and NumPy into our environment, and we've ticked off Jupyter because this is a Jupyter notebook, so we've ticked that off. Now we want to check if these are available. How do we do that? Well, we can import them. Remember, import is saying, hey Python, go and grab these tools so I can use them in my notebook. Import pandas as PD. Now, pandas gets shortened to PD because it saves us typing out pandas a lot. So just know that pandas, whenever you see PD, it probably means pandas. Import NumPy as NP. NumPy gets shortened to NP. Import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. Now, the plots we want to make are from the pyplot module of Matplotlib, and that gets shortened to PLT. Import Scikit-learn, which is short for Scikit-learn. All these little acronyms, don't worry about knowing them too much off by heart for now. You can just copy and paste this sort of stuff. I'll make sure there's a demo notebook in the resources section. But to test this, we're going to hit Shift and Enter. Shift and Enter is how you run a cell in Jupyter. Watch as that number goes up on the left. 3, 4, 4, 5. We do another one. Escape B creates a new cell. We'll learn all these in Jupyter. So print hello beautiful. That's going to be cell 6 because that's how many cells we've run. So this one should be 7 if we hit Shift and Enter. Excellent. Now, why did this work? Well, remember the code that we ran. We're not going to run it in terminal again, but it's going to be conda create prefix. This line of code is what helped us set this up. Prefix, pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn. What we've done is we've created a Conda environment in our sample project folder, and we've installed pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn. But then we tried to run Jupyter, but we couldn't, so we used conda install Jupyter, and then we could access this Jupyter notebook. So that's the workflow. We have our computer, we downloaded Miniconda, which came along with Python, and Conda came along with Miniconda. So then we came into this one, and what we did on our computer was we created a project folder, and then within that project folder we used Conda to create an environment which now contains these tools. So what does that mean? Well, that means that we can now use this environment to work with our data and start to build machine learning models, start to analyze data. And because we've done it with Conda, if we wanted to share our environment with someone in the future, we can. But don't take my word for it. Let's go back over to Finder. If we look in the sample project folder, we've got env and untitled IPyNB. That stands for IPython notebook, which is the old name for Jupyter notebooks. So now our notebook with all of this code that we've just done is also within our project folder. Are you starting to see the value of having everything in one place? So now we could just go, hey, friend or colleague or anyone else that you want to share your work with, send them this folder and make sure the folder contains our environment, which are the tools we use, so our workbench, and the code we're going to write. Well, we don't have much code, but it'll send this across to our colleague or teammate. Now, there's one more thing before we finish up, and that's closing an environment and exiting Jupyter. So when you start a Jupyter notebook, we're back in terminal here, it'll have all these come up in your terminal. Now, to get out of it, to close your Jupyter notebook down, you might do this at the end of your day or whenever you're finished work and you want to start a new project or work on another project. We're going to hit Control and C at the same time. That Control and C, whenever you're in terminal or something like that, is like saying, hey, kill the current running process. So we're going to do that. Control C, shut down this notebook server. Yes, we're going to hit yes. Oh, maybe we timed out for that. We'll try again. So we're shutting it down. Now we're going to see a connection failed here because we're no longer connected to our Jupyter notebook, which makes sense because we just shut it down. That's okay. But you see we're still back in our environment. We've got our environment active. Now say, for example, we wanted to change to another project, so another project of this in a different environment. We want to exit the one we're currently in to go to another one. So we can go Conda to deactivate an environment. You type Conda deactivate, which is telling Conda, hey, exit me out of the environment I'm currently in because I want to go into another one. So we'll do that, Conda deactivate. Now look, we're back to base. So if we go to Conda env list, that'll tell us the list of environments we have. We have base. Now, when we downloaded Miniconda, remember how I said it comes with the bare essentials? What do you think would happen if we tried to run a Jupyter notebook from the base environment? Let's try. Jupyter command not found. Why is that? Well, because remember when we created this environment, we installed Jupyter? Base doesn't have that. It has the bare necessities. We had to create our own custom env before we could access Jupyter. Now, how would we get back into this, back into working on our project? Now, these steps I'll include in the resources section, but this is what you'll probably get most used to when working on different projects, all right? So we go here, Conda activate. Remember, Conda, we wrote this one down earlier. Conda activate, which is saying, Conda, hey, activate my environment called this one. We're going to type that out, users. Yours might be different, right? Remember, this is custom depending on what you've labeled your projects or your environments. The standard name is env though, so that might not change. This project folder might change depending on what project we're working on, and this user might change depending on your actual user. And you might not even have it on the desktop. So Remember, this line of code will be custom depending on your own settings. We're going to hit enter. So see how we've just changed from base back to this. So now we're active in our M. So if we type in Jupyter Notebook, remember this is the workflow. Jupyter Notebook, we come back, we're going to see this is the Jupyter interface and this is the notebook we created 5 minutes ago. And we come in here. Now, whenever you come back to a Jupyter Notebook, these cells are going to reset. So 1, 2, that was just 5, that was 6, now it's going to be 3, this will be 4. And again, we're going to have a whole section on Jupyter Notebooks, but this is the main thing we need to remember for now. Beautiful. We're back in our environment, we're back working. Let's just do a quick recap of what we've actually done. Have our computer, that's what we started with. We downloaded Conda, which came along with Conda. And we come into this one. We wanted to set up an environment to work on our heart disease project. So what did we do? We had our computer, we created a project folder on our desktop called sample project, and then we used Conda to create an environment and installed these tools, Jupyter, Matplotlib, NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn, into our environment. And what we were left with, if we come back to Finder, is we've got an environment folder within our sample project folder and a Jupyter notebook with some template code. Now you'll see in the future projects that these lines here are going to form the basis of many future projects. These 4 tools themselves are fundamental to machine learning and data analysis as a whole. So you'll probably get very familiar, or you will get very familiar if you go through this course, importing them and using them. But that's enough for now. Remember, if you get stuck, check the resources section. Don't forget to look at something like this flowchart. There's also a blog post that goes along with it, but that'll all be in the resources section. Now you might be looking at this kind of graphic and going, okay, I get my computer, but what is this Conda, Python, all these graphics I've never seen before? What is actually going on here? And don't worry if you're feeling like that. It took me a long time to get my head around this kind of workflow, more specifically this one here. So this is what we're going to be setting up in this lecture. Now remember, this one is for Windows. So if you're on a Mac, you may want to go to the Mac version of this. But if you're on Windows, you can stay here and watch right through this. We're going to build out this little workflow from scratch. Now, this is what you likely have. You're probably watching this video on your computer. What we're going to do is set up this project folder and then use Conda. We'll worry about data later in a future lesson. But we're going to set up a project folder and then use Conda, the personal assistant of our data science and machine learning tools, to create this environment. Now remember, this is the kind of workflow that you would do for each new project. And for this lecture, we're going to set up a sample project folder, but we're going to have experience setting up this kind of workflow in each of the hands-on projects throughout this course. But this is just to get your head around it, to understand what this kind of workflow looks like. And so we can just practice setting up a new project and getting our tools ready for data science and machine learning. More specifically, we're going to be going through these steps here. Now this flowchart will be in the resources section, but if we have a look here, this is the Conda one we're going to be taking because we've chosen to use Conda because it is the data scientist's workbench and it takes up 10 times less space on our computer than Anaconda, but offers all the value of what Conda can offer. Let's start with download Conda, install it to your computer, test the installation, create a project folder and change into it, create an environment folder with the project within the project folder, activate the new environment, which will give us access to the tools we've installed to our environment, install Jupyter, load up a Jupyter notebook and check the tools you need. So let's get started. To begin, we open up a web browser and it's conveniently got Conda download here already done. So we're going to search Conda download. Click on the link, will take you to the Conda download page. The link looks something like this. What you should see is a few options here for downloads, a few more links. Now, because we're doing the Windows version, we're going to download the Windows version of Conda. Remember, if you're on macOS, you might want to look into the macOS version, but this lecture we're using Windows. So we're going to choose the latest one, which is Anaconda Windows 64-bit, Python 3.7, because Python 2.7 is getting deprecated after 2020. So we're going to focus on Python 3+. So we click that. I'm going to click Run. Windows is going to run a security scan over that, and then we'll wait for the download to download. We might skip this video a little bit forward once the download's complete. Once the download's complete, this little icon here, which is the Anaconda icon, might appear in your bar down here. But otherwise, if it doesn't, check your downloads folder for the file name that we downloaded. It should look something like this, and click on it, and you should see something like this appear. Now, to go through these steps, we're just going to hit Next. I agree. I'm going to keep it on the recommended settings, which is going to install. Now, you're going to see the Anaconda logo here, but don't be confused by that. We're installing Anaconda. This is the one you want to pay attention to. We're going to click Just Me, keep it recommended. Next. Now, in my case, it's going to be in my user account, so users/Daniel/Anaconda3. You might want to store it somewhere different, but make sure it's easily accessible. In the users folder is easily accessible for me, so I'm going to keep it there. Again, we're going to keep this on the recommended setting, as you can see here. Not recommended. Install. And I will just wait for this to install. Beautiful. Now the installation's complete. It might have taken a few minutes, but that's okay. We're going to untick these. And we're going to click Finish. So now we should have, if you've gone through those setup steps, you should have Anaconda installed on your computer. So what does this mean? Well, we've gone through step 1 and 2 of what we're going to go through. Now we're going to end this lecture here. You might be thinking, Daniel, there's still a bunch of steps we haven't done. But yeah, to prevent this lecture from getting too long, we're going to take care of these, test the installation, create a project folder, and all the rest in the next video. So I'll see you there. Welcome back. In the last video, we went to the Anaconda homepage or downloads page. Remember, this is for Windows, and we downloaded the Windows version, Python 3.7 of Anaconda, and installed it to our computer. More specifically, this is what we did. Download Anaconda, install it to your computer. Now, for this lecture, we're going to take care of these steps. Test the installation, create a project folder, create a custom environment with it, activate your new environment, install Jupyter, and load a Jupyter notebook. Now again, I realize you might be thinking, Daniel, this is a whole lot of steps. I just want to get into coding. And you're right. I'm the same with these sort of things, but trust me, setting up this workflow is what we're doing. We got your computer, we're going to create a project folder, and then build an environment using Conda, an environment which contains all of our machine learning and data science tools. It's going to be foundational and paramount for future projects going forward. So let's do it. Now we've gone through the download steps of Anaconda and installed it to our computer. We can check to see if it's there by typing in search and looking for something called Anaconda prompt. Anaconda. This will be here once you've installed Anaconda. So we're going to click on that. There we go. And what you're seeing here is this Anaconda prompt. What it's referred to in macOS is a terminal, but it's essentially a little part of your computer, a little program where you can type in code and have your computer execute it. So what this means is this little section here is called the env prompt. Now remember, we're setting up an environment. Base is the default environment that gets installed automatically when you download Anaconda and subsequently Conda. And this here is the file path that we're in. So I'm on the C drive in the users folder, Daniel. Yours might be slightly different depending on what your name is. So now we've got this set up. First things first is that we need to create a project folder. So let's do that. To do so, we're going to have a look at what current folders exist in the folder Daniel. And we can do that in Windows by pressing dir, which stands for directory. And that's going to list out a series of folders. Now, if we wanted to see these, you might be seeing this for the first time and thinking, oh my goodness, this is a bit confusing. But let me show you what exactly it's printing out. If we go into the file browser here, we can go to PC. Now we want to copy this. So there's C users Daniel. That's what we want to look for. I'm going to go to the local disk C users, because remember we have users here. And then we're going to go users Daniel. So if we actually type this out, C/users/Daniel, it's the same as what we can see over here. So now if we compare this list here, we have 3D objects, contacts, desktop, documents, downloads, etc. What we want to do is, for this use case, we're going to create it we'll create it on the desktop so we have easy access to it. And what I mean by this is we're going to create this project folder, which is just another one of these, which is going to contain all of our project information on the desktop so we have easy access to it. So let's change to the desktop. And what I mean by that is, see how this path is users/Daniel? To change to the desktop, I'm going to press CD desktop. And what CD stands for is change directory to the desktop. So now, if I go dir, which is going to list all the folders on the desktop, it's going to show me sample project. So if we go on desktop, we've got sample project. Now we're going to be creating another one of these. So you might not have this already, but this is what we're going to be creating. We'll call it sample project 1 for this lecture. I've already got a demonstration here, but we'll create a new one. So to create a folder, we can type the command mkdir, which stands for make directory. Because we're going to call it sample project 1, that's what we tell it. So we're telling our computer, hey, we're in this drive, we're in the users folder, we're in Daniel, we're on the desktop, and I want to make a directory called sample project 1. We're going to hit enter. Now you can see that has created sample project 1. We'll go back here. So what have we just done? Well, we've done the first step. We've created the project folder. So now we're going to use Conda to build this environment. If we go back to our flowchart, create a project folder and change into it. So that's what we have to do. We've created the project folder, but we're not in it yet, so we need to change into it. Remember to change directory and press CD into sample project 1. So now this is what we have. We're in here. We're on the desktop, and we've got sample project 1. And if we go dir to see what files are in here, there's actually nothing in here. So 0 bytes, 0 files. If we look, sample project 1, this folder is empty. So that makes sense. Okay, now what's the next steps? Changed into it, create a custom environment within the project folder. Well, let's do that. So to use Conda to create an environment, remember if we look at this, we're going to use Conda to create this. So that's this step. You can run the command Conda. It's like saying, hey Conda, our personal assistant, create. Then we're going to pass it the prefix tag. And now I'm going to write this out, /env pandas numpy matplotlib and scikit-learn. You might be looking at this going, my goodness, Daniel, what is going on here? Well, that's a great question. So remember, what we're saying is Conda, hey, personal assistant Conda, create. We're not actually, that was a bit mean. We're not yelling that. Pretend this is saying please. Conda, create, prefix. When you see these double hashtags, it's like a little command that can go to the create function. This dot means it's going to use this file path here. So essentially saying, the dot saying within the sample project 1 folder. Env, create a folder called env, and within that env is short for environment, which is this. Within that env, install pandas, numpy, matplotlib, and scikit-learn. Now what are these? Well, if we look here, matplotlib, numpy, pandas, scikit-learn. So let's run this by pressing enter and see what happens. So now our personal assistant Conda, what just happened? A whole bunch of code just appeared. Because we've ran this command here, Conda create prefix env, etc. What this is going to do is Conda, our personal assistant for collecting data science tools, remember these are data science tools here, is going to go to the internet and download or query the internet and go, hey, Daniel wants to create an environment on his computer with Matplotlib, NumPy, Pandas, and Scikit-learn. And so the following packages will be downloaded. This is a message from Conda. All we did was press enter. What Conda is going to do is, because these packages themselves or these tools require some other tools within them to operate, so lots of code, the reason why is because people have written lots of code in the past, and to prevent rewriting all the code, a lot of existing tools leverage another bunch of existing tools. So Conda is automatically, so this is a beautiful thing about Conda. It's going to download all of the extra tools that we need to get started. And this is what this is listing out here. So we want to proceed. To do so, we'll press Y. Now, Conda is going to download and extract. Extract means install all of the packages it requires to get set up. So now this might take a minute or so, or maybe a little bit longer depending on your internet connection or hard drive speed. So I'll let this run through and we'll resume the lecture once it's finished. Excellent. Conda has now finished. That took about a minute or so on my computer. What it's actually done is it's gone to the internet, it's downloaded and installed these packages, so a big long list of them, into our environment. Now let's have a look over here. So this is what it's done. We created a project folder. Now we've asked Conda, using the Conda create command, to create this environment. So if we go back to our sample project 1 folder, there's now a folder in here called env, which is, remember, short for environment. We go in here, we click in here. It's going to have a whole bunch of different files in here. Now, to be honest, I don't even understand what's going on in here. What is important to know is that this contains all of our data science and machine learning tools. So now we have a project folder with an environment with all our tools ready to go. So to access that environment and to access the tools that we want to use, Conda tells us to activate this environment, use the command Conda activate C users Daniel desktop sample project 1 env. Now you might want to write this one down if you're doing this for the first time. Yours might be slightly different to mine. Your username might be different, and you might have called this something else, because you can call this whatever you like. You should really call env, always call env. That's a universal name for, or shortened version of environment. But to activate this environment that we've just created, we can use this command. And now I'm a big fan of typing out commands. So we're going to go, instead of just copying and pasting, which we could definitely do, but to practice typing out these things, because we want to, after all, that's what we want to do. We want to start writing our own code. I'm going to type this out, sample project 1 /env, run. Now, what you'll notice that's changed. So I literally just type this out and press enter. If we hit enter, you'll notice this base has now changed to this file path here, which means this is the environment prompt. So now we've activated this environment. What that means, we'll have access to all of the tools in this environment. So the ones we just installed. So let's try and test it out. To do so, we'll try and load a Jupyter notebook using the command Jupyter notebook. And if you've never used a Jupyter notebook before, don't worry, there'll be a section on that. But a Jupyter notebook is what you need to know is kind of like a data scientist's workpad. You can write code, you can write text, you can work on projects. In fact, all of the projects we work on will be within Jupyter notebooks. It's like the basis of all of our machine learning work. So let's try and start one up. Okay, we're getting an error here. Jupyter is not recognized as an internal or external command. Now the reason being is if you remember the exact code that we ran before, and it's okay if you don't, we did Conda create, prefix env, pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn. So if we go back to our diagram, what do we have? Pandas, Matplotlib, NumPy, Scikit-learn. But no Jupyter. We forgot to include Jupyter in this line. Not to worry, Conda, our personal assistant, is back to the rescue because there's a handy command called Conda install. What this means is if we type in Jupyter, Conda install is going to install a new tool to our current active environment, which is exactly what we want. And since we want to use Jupyter notebooks, we need the Jupyter package. So let's run that by hitting enter. Conda is going to do the same thing as what it did before. We go up here, we've seen all these before, except this time it's only focused on Jupyter. In the environment location, users Daniel desktop sample project 1 m. So if we follow this through, it's going to install all of these extra packages because Conda is amazing. It's our personal assistant. And remember, all these packages are our tools that we need for data scientists. And we go Y to run. And again, it's going to go through these download and extracting steps. We'll pause the lecture, wait for this to finish, and we'll come back once it's done. Beautiful. Now that that's finished, we should have access to Jupyter. So let's do a quick recap of what we've done. So we've created a project folder, changed into it, that's sample project 1. Create a custom environment. We've done that with Conda create. Activate our new environment. Yep, we've done that with Conda activate. Install Jupyter because we tried to access Jupyter, but it didn't work with Conda install Jupyter. Now we have to load up a Jupyter notebook and check the tools we need. Okay, let's try that. So if we've actually installed Jupyter, we should be able to run the command again, Jupyter notebook, the one we tried before that didn't work. So we'll type that in, Jupyter notebook, and hit enter. So now what this is going to do is going to automatically open your browser, your default one, and launch the Jupyter interface. So we can see here maybe a few new things here that if you've never seen it before. What's important to note is that the Jupyter interface has been created from within the folder that we're currently in on terminal. So, users Daniel desktop sample project 1 Jupyter notebook. It's like telling your computer, hey, start a Jupyter notebook within the sample project 1 folder. So if we look here, we've got the N folder. If we compare back to our sample project 1, we've got the N folder as well. Now to start a Jupyter notebook, remember the workspace where a data scientist or machine learning engineer will do a lot of coding, working on different projects. You can go up to here, new, notebook, Python 3. And again, we're going to have a whole entire section on Jupyter notebooks. So don't worry too much if you're not sure what's happening here. And so what this is going to do, what's happened here? Oh, there we go. It just took a little while to load. So what we did there, we've actually got two because there was something going on there with my computer and it took a while to start up. There we go, untitled IPyNB, which stands for IPython Notebook, which was Jupyter's previous name. And so this is the Jupyter interface. Absolutely beautiful space. We're going to get very familiar with using this throughout the course. And again, we're going to have an entire section on this, but what you need to know for now is that you can run Python code in here. So hello world, and then press shift and enter, and that'll come through. This is a cell in Jupyter notebooks. This is referred to as a cell. You can also change it to markdown, which is like saying text, and say this cell does a simple sum. And the one below is going to do 1 plus 1, shift and enter. But what we're focused on doing is testing to see if our environment is set up. So specifically, we've ticked off Jupyter. We've got access to Jupyter because we're in the Jupyter interface. Now we want to see if we have access to Pandas, Scikit-learn, NumPy, and Matplotlib. We can do that by importing them. And remember, the import statement is like saying, hey, Python, go and get these packages or tools for us and bring them into our workspace so we can access them. So do import Pandas as PD, import NumPy as NP, import matplotlib.pyplot, oh, we forgot lib.pyplot, as PLT, import Scikit-learn, which is short for Scikit-learn. Now, these, you might be like Pandas is PD, what? NumPy is NP, Matplotlib. The reason why we shorten it to these things is so we don't have to always type Pandas. Now, if you ever see PD or NP or PLT, you can probably be safe to assume that they're Pandas, NumPy, Matplotlib, or PyPlot. To test these, if we actually do have access to them and our environment is set up, we can run this cell, and if there's no errors, we should have an environment ready to start doing data science and machine learning work. Fingers crossed. Beautiful. We can tell that there was no errors because you'll see a number here. Every time you run a Jupyter cell, we'll go over this in a future lecture, the number will go up. So the first one you run will be 1. That's 7 now because we've run 7 different cells. But this is exciting. We've just set up an environment to work on machine learning and data science projects. Let's have a look. We started with this, your computer. Then we downloaded Conda, which came with Python and Conda. Then we used Conda to install these tools, specifically within an environment. Now, if we go back here, we've gone through these steps. In a previous lecture, we downloaded and installed Conda. We tested our installation via the Anaconda prompt. We created a project folder, sample project 1, and changed into it. We created a custom environment within the project folder. We activated the new environment so we have access to tools. We installed Jupyter. Then we loaded up a Jupyter notebook and checked to see if we had the tools we needed, which we did. Whew! That was a lot to take in. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of practice going through this in future projects and lectures. So, what do we do now? We've got our Jupyter notebook running, but maybe you've finished for the day and you want to close it. What I've just done is saved. So to save a Jupyter notebook, you can either click this save icon, and that'll save it once it loads, or you can press Command S or Control S or something like that. But to close it down, we go back to our Anaconda prompt, and we're going to press Control C. So there we go. We press Control C. Now it says shutting down one kernel. Kernel shut down. The kernel is what runs our Jupyter notebook in the background. So now you'll see here that the connection has failed to our Jupyter notebook. So we'll go OK. That means our Jupyter notebook, we're no longer connected to it. So we're back here. And we're still in our environment. But to deactivate the environment, maybe you wanted to get out and create a new environment. So we're going to type in Conda deactivate. What this will do is take us back to base. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, maybe we want to create a new environment. Maybe you want to work on another project, such as sample project 2, and that uses a different environment. There might be a plethora of reasons. However, how do you get back into your environment? Well, luckily, we wrote down that piece of code before. If you didn't, it's okay. It's the Conda activate C. We're going to write this out, /env. Now, this is if you were coming back to your work and wanted to get back into your project. Daniel because this is where we created our environment, sample project 1. Now, this might be in the future, it might be might be project 2, might be project 3, or something like that. But we'll usually have env at the end here. So Conda activate our environment. Beautiful. Now we're back from base to having our environment active. So then we can type in Jupyter Notebook. Load back up a Jupyter Notebook. It's going to take us to the home page. There we go. We've got our untitled IPyMB, which was saved 2 minutes ago. Click on that. And there's our code from before. So then we could continue work on our project, save it when we need to, and exit when we don't need to work on it. Well, we're going to see this more and more for each single project that we work on. What's important to remember is that this is what we've done. We've set this up for the future. We have our computer. We've created a project folder. Say we wanted to work on heart disease classification. You'd make a folder for that. You'd create an environment, install the tools that you need using Conda. Then If you're working by yourself, you might not need to do this, but in the future when you're on teams, this is one of the biggest challenges we worked through as a machine learning team, was sharing these environments so other people could work on the same projects as us. So that's what we've done. So in upcoming lectures and projects, we're going to do the same steps. Create a project folder, build an environment with the tools we need using Conda. And then every time we're going to go in, activate our environment so we have access to the tools, and then work on our projects in Jupyter notebooks. Okay, that was a lot to take in, but don't worry, there's attached resources. And if you want, rewatch this video, go through it step by step. Check out the resources section for a step-by-step guide. And if you get stuck, don't worry, I got stuck plenty of times when I was figuring this out. It took me a few goes. Welcome back. I'm so excited for this section. Why? Because we're going to start getting hands-on with one of my favorite tools in all of machine learning and data science. Now, in the past couple of sections, we've gone through this kind of workflow. We've got your computer, we set up a project folder, we created an environment with some machine learning and data science tools using Conda. Now we're going to start diving deeper into each one of these tools. And more specifically in this section, we're going to be focused on Jupyter notebooks. Now, if this diagram, this arrow pointing here, these arrows going here, you're like, what's going on here, Daniel? Don't worry, we're going to have a look at this over the next few sections. But what we're focused on for the moment are Jupyter notebooks, which is kind of like the workspace of where you'll work through all of your machine learning and data science projects. And now this is the workflow we're going to be using. You'll have a project folder, which we've already created. We'll have an environment, so we'll need to make sure we activate our environment so we have access to these tools. But then once we've kind of got our heads around Jupyter notebooks and these other ones, this is what it'll look like in practice. You'll have some data, you'll import it into your Jupyter notebook, and then you'll use a bunch of these tools within your environment to derive insights and gain information out of that data. But that's enough of the overview for now. Let's get hands-on and work with a Jupyter notebook. So what I'm going to do is open up Terminal. If you're on Windows, you may want to open up, I'm going to clear that so we've got a clean workspace. If you're on Windows, you may want to open up the Anaconda prompt. And now remember how I said we're going to have to activate our environment to have access to these tools? That's what we'll do first. But actually, we're going to change into our project folder. Now for me, I'm going to change to my desktop. And I've got all of my information, all of the project folders that I'm working on in the ML course folder. So we're going to go here. Mine's called sample project. Yours might be different, but I'll just show you what's in this using ls. Remember, CD stands for change directory. So now I'm in my sample project folder, and inside the sample project folder is a folder called env. Just to re-emphasize where we are, I'll go into Finder. This might be Folder Navigator on Windows or something like that. So I'm in ML course, and if I go over here, I'm in sample project. There we go, we've got env. Now what I'm going to have to do is activate this environment so I have access to all of my machine learning tools. So let's do that. Conda activate. I'm going to have to type in the file path. Yours may be different to mine depending on where your environment is stored. But that's what we covered in the last lecture, is setting up an environment and activating it. So you want to go ahead and activate that environment again. Desktop, ML course, sample project, env. So if I press enter here, you'll notice that it changes from base to having this path name activated. So now my environment is active. I should be able to start up a Jupyter notebook. Oh, we made a mistake. Notebook by typing in the command Jupyter notebook and hitting enter. What this is going to do is automatically load up your browser, your default browser, and it's going to come to the Jupyter dashboard. Very simple here. Again, this is just another view of what we can see in the sample project folder. So here we have our env folder. If we looked inside that, if we go back into Finder, we look inside env, we've got the exact same folders here. This is where we're working. Now, what should you pay attention to on this? First, we'll go back to the home section. We look here, this is showing the files that we've currently got in this folder. Remember, we're in the sample project folder. Then if you come over here, we've got a couple of buttons, upload and new. We'll have a look at those in a second. And you've got two other tabs here. Running will show you any terminals that you have running in your Jupyter interface. Notebooks will show you any notebooks that you have running. And because we have neither of these running at the moment, it says there are no terminals running and there are no notebooks running. Now clusters you don't really have to worry about. For now, I've been working on machine learning projects for the last couple of years and have never looked at the clusters tab. So we'll come back here, we'll focus on what really matters. So what are these upload and new buttons? Well, let's have a look. We click upload, what happens? This is going to open up your folder interface. Now, what if we did want to upload something? For example, I've got a heartdisease.csv document here for the sake of this lecture, but you might have another type of data folder here. So what we can do is, if we wanted to, we can open that, and this is going to upload it to the Jupyter dashboard. But in reality, all it's actually doing is, if we come back to sample project, where we were before, now we can see we've got env, and heart disease, and heart disease. So realistically, this upload button is just like another form of transfer one folder to another region. So we can do that again. Let's try an image this time. And now this upload will work with any folder or any file that you want to try out. So try it out on your own. If you want a link to these resources that I'm using, will be available in the resources section. So we'll upload this image, click there. And so now if we go back to Finder, and go to where we were, sample project. So we can see now we've got the exact same thing in here. env, 6-step ML framework.png, and heartdisease.csv. Okay, and there's one more button we should pay attention to, and that's the new. We click on new, and this is the most exciting part. We can start a notebook. Now it says Python 3 because when we click on this, it's going to create a new notebook, and the notebook will be able to run Python 3 code, which is what we want, right? We want to be writing Python code. We want to be writing machine learning code. You can also create text files, create another folder if you wanted to, or create a terminal window. We won't have a look at those now because we're focused on notebooks, which is where we'll spend the majority of our time. So we click here. This will open up a new window, and here we go. The most beautiful thing in all of data science and machine learning, well, maybe aside from an algorithm that's working really well, is the Jupyter Notebook. And so again, this interface might look a bit confusing if you've never seen it before, but don't worry, we're going to go through it. To start off, up here is the title of your notebook. So maybe we call it Example Notebook. This will rename your file. And if we click this little save icon, it's going to click say that it's auto saved here, but really we click saved. But that's all right. We come back here. What do we notice? We've got example notebook.ipynb. So see what I mean? If you type in here, example notebook, let's just change this for demonstration. Example notebook 1, rename. That's going to change this name. And so if we come back to our sample project folder, you'll notice we now have example notebook.ipynb. Now, what does ipynb stand for? Well, IPython notebook, which is what Jupyter used to be called, but they've kept the file extension as this so that older versions of notebooks don't break. So wherever you see this extension, some name.ipynb, this is actually a Jupyter notebook. Now, if we check the running tab, we can see that we now have a notebook running. We don't have to pay too much attention to this shutdown button from this running tab because we can shut down our notebook elsewhere, but we'll look at that in a future video. The next thing to think about, let's rename this back to example notebook, is what is actually going on here. Now, as a quick overview, remember this is the title. This is going to be the menu bar, which is similar to what you may have seen in other applications where you've got file, edit, you've got a few different controls here. This is the toolbar, right? So these are commands that you can use on different cells, and this is a cell. The most important thing to remember about this is that this cell can contain code or markdown. Can contain other things as well, but the two main ones you'll be worried about are code and markdown. Code was what allows you to write Python code in here, and markdown allows you to write formatted text. Say if we wanted to write hello world, we're going to press Shift and Enter, and there we go, we've got some text there. All right, save this lecture from getting too long. We're going to have a look at different things that we can do with cells, different things that we can do with these little tools here in the next video. But the takeaway from this is that you can start a Jupyter notebook once you've got your environment activated. If your terminal window changes to something like this after you run the command Jupyter notebook, that is completely normal. What this is saying is basically a Jupyter notebook is running at the local host, which is on your computer. You can see here, local host. So it just means that a document is running in your browser. So keep this as it is. We'll return back in the next video to look at more controls and things we can do within Jupyter notebooks. Welcome back. Okay, now we've got a Jupyter notebook running. It's time to see what we can actually do in this notebook. So remember in the last lesson we went through this is like your standard menu bar. This is a toolbar, but we're going to avoid using the toolbar because we want to become experts at using our keyboard. All of the things here that you can do, like saving, adding, cutting, copying, pasting, etc., you can do with the keyboard. So what will this save you? Well, instead of clicking run on a cell, so run is how you run some code. So if we go here, maybe we want to print a nice message. Hello world, I'm learning about Jupyter notebooks. We hit Shift and Enter. We could have done that. I'll see, I've done that out of habit, right? And that's what we're going to be focused on, is rather than just learning how to use this toolbar to begin with, we're going to be focused from the start on using the keyboard. So I could keep pressing run here, or I could keep pressing Shift Enter. And now what you might be noticing is that the number on the left is going up every time I hit Shift and Enter. So remember, I've just got this cell highlighted, pressing Shift, Enter. That's how you run a piece of code in a Jupyter notebook. Beautiful, isn't it? Now this cell number is going up. All that's saying is that this is the 13th cell. Remember, this is a cell. Could be code or markdown. We'll see that in a second. This cell, or there have been 13 cells run in total in Jupyter. Where this is helpful is if you had something like a equals 5, 14, and then you go a, oh, we didn't mean that, a equals 6. So what do you think a equals now? Because this is 14 and this is 16. If we hit this and hit Shift Enter, a is going to equal 6. So these numbers are helpful to show us what order our notebook has been run in. So for example, if we had 100 of these different cells with different information, in an ideal world, a notebook is run from top to bottom. But in some cases, you might be working on a project and run a cell up here and then rerun it down here. And later on in your notebook, a few hundred cells down, you've got some kind of error. This is what you can use to figure out what order your notebook was run in. Now, because we've got code here, we can run all of Python's functionality from right in the Jupyter notebook. Shift and Enter, 1 + 2. You'll notice some cells have in and some cells have out. Now, if a cell has an output, like some sort of code output, it will usually have an out number. The out number matches the in number. So this is just saying, hey, there's some input code here, and we've got some output code here. Now, we did have a brief look at this before, code and markdown. This is where the absolute beauty of Jupyter Notebook comes into play, is that you can have code and formatted text, which is what markdown is, within the same notebook. Let me show you an example. Say we wanted to start our project called Heart Disease Project. And remember, Jupyter Notebooks are the workspace of your data science projects. So you can run machine learning code and describe what you're doing right from the notebook. We're going to see this in practice throughout, but I just want to highlight what turning a cell into markdown does. So we can change that to markdown, but remember, we don't want to get used to using the toolbar. So how do we do that? Well, another beautiful thing about Jupyter is that the cells have two simple modes. One is called Edit, and you'll notice this little pencil up here and this green box around it. The other is called Command mode. Now, how do we switch between the two? Well, as you might have guessed, we can also use the keyboard because remember, we're not getting used to using this toolbar. You might as well pretend it's not even there. So to change from Edit to Command mode, we're going to press Escape. Beautiful. Now we notice that the little green bar has changed to a blue bar and the pencil has gone away. Now before we run this cell, how do we get back to Edit mode? To do that, we press Enter. Now we get our green box back and the little pencil comes back. Excellent. But we actually want to be in Command mode, so we'll go back. Escape. Blue box is back, pencil is gone. You'll get used to running this, Escape and Enter, after you've had some experience. I just know how to do these things because I've run thousands of cells in my experience. And we're going to press M for Markdown. I had to think about that because to change it back to code is Y. So watch this little box up here. While we're in Edit Command mode, with the blue box, we can press M for Markdown or Y for code. But we want Markdown in this case, M. And to run this cell, we're going to hit Shift Enter. Now you see this is some nicely formatted text. So what you could imagine in the future is for a project, you might start it off with a heading up here, and then you might add some information below it. So this project is about classifying whether or not a patient has heart disease. So this is how you can start to communicate your work right from the very beginning of a project. Now, what else could you do here? Well, let's see some data. If we go back to our Keynote, we want to set up this kind of setup. So we want some data in our project folder. We want to run this data through our workspace, which is a Jupyter notebook, and try to use some of these tools. Well, let's get a little taste of that. So if we go here, import pandas as PD, what this is saying is this is code. It's telling Python to go, hey Python, go and get pandas, import it as the shortcut PD, which is very common for pandas. We'll see a little bit more of pandas in a future video. What I'm doing is exemplifying the different types of things you can do in a Jupyter notebook. And please, if you're following along, make sure you're typing this code out by yourself. But if we go type this line of code and hit Shift Enter, what that's going to do is import pandas to this notebook. So now we have access to use pandas, which is one of the tools we installed in our environment within our workspace, the Jupyter notebook. So do you remember in the last lesson how we uploaded some files here? How would we get these files? So this is a heartdisease.csv. How would we get that? Now, if you've never heard of CSV, it's a format called comma-separated values. It's a very common way to store data. But how do you think we'd get that into here? Now, it's all right if you don't know because you might not have ever gone through this before. But what we're going to do is use pandas to create a data frame. A DF stands for data frame. We're going to read CSV, and we're going to use the file name. Now, another beautiful thing about Jupyter Notebooks is that if you have a file in here, you can use tab for autocomplete. So if we press tab, it's going to pick up heartdisease.csv. And we've already got the other inverted comma, so we're going to select this one. So what is this line of code doing? Well, it's going data frame equals PD, so pandas dot read CSV. So this is a function, and we're passing the file name heartdisease.csv to the read CSV function. We'll have a complete section on pandas later on, but this is just to exemplify what you can do within a Jupyter notebook. So we're going to hit Shift Enter. You can see that it's run because that number has gone up. But how would we view our data? So another beautiful thing about Jupyter Notebooks is that you can view what you're working on straight away. So df.head shows the first 5 rows of your data frame. So if we look here, we've got different columns, we've got different examples. Maybe we wanted to view the first 10 to get a better look. There we go. We'll have a look at this in a future project, but this is just to show you what kind of data Jupyter Notebooks can display. So we might even put a cell in here. So we go escape B for a new cell below. You can also press A for a new cell above, but we're going to remove this one. So escape, double D for delete. Beautiful. We go, the following table shows heart disease information for patients. Escape and press M for markdown, Shift Enter. Now we've got some communication happening here. Okay, well, we've seen a table. What if we wanted to maybe put in a little graph or something like that and see what this information actually looked like? Because this is pretty confusing. We've got a target column which is full of ones and zeros. I only know that because I've seen this table before. But 1 means someone has heart disease, and a 0, you can't see any on this at the moment, means someone doesn't have heart disease. So what if we wanted to graph that quickly and have a look at how many patients have heart disease and how many don't? And each row here, by the way, is an individual patient, and so these are their parameters. Let's have a look. We can go df.target, which just means access the target value of df. And we're going to go value counts, which just means count the number of occurrences of different values in this column. Then .plot, which means create a plot of kind, oh, we got that mixed up, kind bar, which just means let's create a bar graph. Let me see, hit Shift Enter, by the way. Why didn't that show up? Well, matplotlib.access. If we go back to our little environment set up here, we've been using Pandas to look at this data frame, but we need Matplotlib to look at graphs. Okay. The reason I know that is because I've had experience, but we're going to have a look at each of these tools in depth. So what could we do here? Maybe we try to go import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. PLT is a shortcut for Matplotlib. We hit Shift Enter. Nothing happens. Now, why is that? Well, remember, Jupyter Notebooks are executed in order of operation. So just because we ran a cell down here doesn't mean it's going to influence the cell up here. So what we'll have to do is come back up here and rerun this cell. There we go. So now if we look at the numbers, in 24, in 25, out 25. You see what just happened there? Because we ran this cell before as 24 and this was 23, running this piece of code didn't affect this until we reran it. So that's a very important thing to think about with Jupyter Notebooks, is that they're executed in order of operation. And so the other takeaway here is that not only can we look at our data in a table format, we can start to look at it in graph format. So you might be starting to see here, okay, if I can run code cells as well as text cells as well as image cells, I could do my entire project from within this notebook, which is exactly right. See one more thing, and that's if we wanted to import another image. So we'll change this cell to markdown, escape, M. We're going to use exclamation mark. If you've never written markdown code before, there's some great guides online on how to write markdown code. But essentially any kind of markdown code you can write in a Jupyter cell. So we want to import the image that we uploaded earlier, .png, and you can do this with any image. So this is within this folder here. We're just writing it here. You can do this with your own image. Basically what this is markdown code for saying import this image to the notebook. If we hit Shift Enter, there we go. So this is our framework. Okay, we've seen this before. Now what we might do is create a section for each of these steps. So you could do markdown again, escape, M. Number 1, problem definition, where we could say predict heart disease. I'm typing out something smaller here. You might want to do something longer. And then we could have escape, BBB, to create 5 or 6 cells. Or 4, I can't really count. 2, data. This is the data we're using. We're going to hit Escape, M, and then Shift, Enter. So now you can start to imagine we've got our framework. We could start off with a problem definition. We could then look at a data. Just like we've done here, we could move this down to the data section. Then we could create an evaluation metric. Then we could look at the features of our data. We could do some modeling, and then we could run experiments. All of this from within a Jupyter notebook. Now, there's one more thing before we finish up this lecture, because it's getting a bit long, that you can do within a Jupyter notebook. The main two takeaways so far is that you can run code, text, and images all within the same space. And the final thing is that you can also run terminal commands from within a Jupyter notebook. So say, for example, we wanted to run ls, just as if we were running ls on the terminal. So if I go here and I put in ls, it's going to list all of the files in my user account. If we do the same in Jupyter Notebook, if we just ran ls in a code cell and hit Shift Enter, that's interesting. That might be an update I haven't seen before. Usually you'd have to type in !ls. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. Maybe you don't need the exclamation mark, but generally to run a command like ls, like list, you would need the exclamation mark in front of the terminal command. And what this is going to do is go in Jupyter, instead of executing this command like some Python code, execute it, because it's got the exclamation mark there, as if I was running it on the terminal, like this. And so the ls command is just showing us the different files that we have here. All right, well, that's enough for this lesson. Remember, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but this is important to take away, is that Jupyter Notebook cells are run in order of the number. So if we ran here, a equals 5. If we came down to this one and skipped this one, it's going to be a equals 5. But then if we ran this, a would equal 6. And you can run markdown cells, code cells, as well as plot different images, all within the notebook. We're going to have plenty of hands-on experience with this throughout the rest of the course, so stay tuned. Okay, I hope you're starting to get excited as I am about Jupyter Notebooks, because I seriously love these. Now, the beautiful thing, the final last beautiful thing about these is that because once you finish your project, you probably want to share your work. Maybe that's through GitHub, or give it to one of your teammates so they can check it out for you. Now, Jupyter Notebooks makes that a breeze. What you might have seen is throughout past few lectures is this auto-saved indicator here. But if we wanted to generate that normally, if we wanted to save our work, say we're finished for the day, and when we want to save it, shut up shop, and come back, get ready for tomorrow, we can go save here. Now it's going to automatically save it. Or, remember how we're not getting used to using this, if we are in command mode, which is the blue square and no pencil up here, we can hit S, which is a shortcut for save. Otherwise, at any time that you want, you can also hit Command S if you're on a Mac, or Control S if you're on Windows or something like that. It's a good habit to get into if you're continually hitting Command S or save or just clicking this, but again, remember you want to focus on using the keyboard, because saving your work often will prevent you having to redo things if for some reason you end up losing something. Okay, so our notebook is saved. Now, how do we shut it down? If we come back to the Jupyter dashboard, we can see running. Now, you've got this shutdown button here, but usually you probably won't use that. So to shut our notebook down, we're going to go into Terminal. And we can see here that we've saved our notebook several times, and this is timestamps. So these are the last 3 saves that we did, pretty close together after each other. To shut the notebook down and stop your terminal from running, going to hit Control plus C. Then it's going to ask you yes or no, and you're going to have to hit Y or N within 5 seconds. I hit Y because I want to shut it down. And that's what you'll see here, shutting down one kernel. Let's go back here. Go Files, Running. Maybe we have to refresh this or close this. sometimes the Jupyter dashboard won't update because we've closed the connection in our terminal. But that's fine, we can X out of this. So now our Jupyter notebook is no longer running, it is saved in our sample project folder. We come back here, ML course, sample project. There we go, example notebook. And it's going to say, date modified today at 11:27 a.m. There we go, saved it 2 minutes ago, beautiful. And what you'll see here is we're now back, we've got the environment activated within the sample project folder. So what happens if we wanted to completely get out of the environment as well, like Conda, deactivate. Maybe you want to activate another environment to work on another project. So to get out of your current environment, you can type in Conda deactivate. That's going to take you back to base, the default environment, but we're still within the sample project folder. So if we came back tomorrow, let's exit out of everything that we have open actually, so we can see what it's like to come back completely from scratch, because this is what you'll want to be doing. Remember, this is what we've set up. We've got our project folder, you've seen some data being imported into the workspace's Jupyter notebook, and you've seen a little highlight of using some tools within your environment. So let's reactivate this whole setup again. Terminal. We're going to increase the size. See how I have base activated by default. I'm going to change into my sample project folder. So desktop, mine stored on my desktop under ML course. Yours might be different, remember. Now I'm within the sample project folder. If I hit LS, I can see the image that we uploaded. I can see my environment. I can see my notebook. And I can see the data there, heartdisease.csv. So if we wanted to access a notebook, let's enter Jupyter Notebook. Command not found. Take a second to think about why that command might not work. If you'd guessed that we didn't have our environment activated, that's correct. But that's all right if you didn't, because it took me ages to get used to this kind of workflow. But I want to show you it. So Conda activate, not activation. Conda activate. We're going to reactivate our environment. Users, is it? Users, Daniel. Desktop / ML course / sample project / env. There we go. We notice that base has changed to this. Now, if we run the Jupyter Notebook command again, Jupyter Notebook, what do you think this will do? Let's see. This is going to bring us back to the Jupyter dashboard. Now, if we go into running, we've got no notebooks, no terminals running. We notice that our terminal has changed again to this funky looking code. All it's saying is we've got a Jupyter Notebook server running on localhost 888, which is the same as here, quad 8, not 888. And we have our notebook here. To start it up, you can click on it, and we come back. Beautiful. We've got everything that we were looking at before in the previous video. Now, the thing to remember is that when you reload a Jupyter Notebook, all the memory of the cells will start from scratch. So if we wanted to rerun this cell, remember to run a cell is Shift plus Enter or this run button, but we're ignoring the toolbar. We want to get proficient at using the keyboard. Shift Enter. It's going to start back at 1. And if we do the same, 2, same, 3. Now, if we ran this, what do you think A will be equal to as the output? Because we've gone 2, 3, A equals 6, A equals 5. Shift Enter. A equals 6. Remember, because Jupyter Notebook cells are run in order of execution. And so this is the workflow that you would take if you were coming back to work on your project again. You might have to rerun all of your cells. So the code, say we were working down here, you may have to rerun all of the cells above so that you can work on your code down here and you're not missing out on any data. And the final beautiful thing is, because we've now got a workspace that we can work on in entire projects, we can also share this workspace. So if we come back, our sample project folder that we've been working through has our environment, has our data, has this image that we've been looking at, and it has our notebook which contains code and text about the project we're working on. So if my teammate was like, hey, Daniel, can you share with me the Jupyter notebook you've been working on for the heart disease project? I could be like, sure. I could send them this, and then they could, if they've got this exact same setup on their computer, they could start up an environment, import the data, work through the 6-step ML framework, and then run the code and read my descriptions throughout my Jupyter notebook. So that is the beautiful thing about Jupyter notebooks. They're kind of like the all-in-one workspace for data science and machine learning projects. So in the next few lectures or in the next few lessons and projects, we're going to really dig into this little framework here, at the same time at working out how to apply different data science and machine learning tools, such as these, within our Jupyter notebook.